Edition of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, an early Friday edition. It is a little past noon Eastern, and here's the deal. All of the games from Thursday are final. Some of the games from Friday have already started. As a matter of fact, Purdue in the Big Ten is playing behind me here at Circa Sportsbook and Circa Casino in Las Vegas. So I actually just looked back. Zach Edey was on the foul line, so you know it's March when somebody from Purdue is on the foul line. But we have a quick Friday preview show because I know I said Thursday, that was the best Thursday. Last night was the best night of college basketball. Well, Friday's pretty darn close. The SEC, the Big Ten, the big boys are showing up. We're going to preview the SEC, talk Kentucky, Texas A&M. We're going to talk South Carolina, Auburn, Florida, Alabama, all that good stuff. Talk a little bit about the Big Ten, but then also preview an insane semifinal slate in the Big East. In the Big 12. The ACC, I don't know if you could call North Carolina, Pitt, Virginia, NC State insane, but it will be fun nonetheless. Truly appreciate everybody's support. First of all, we are live from the Circa Casino in Las Vegas. Third day, third different setup. We truly appreciate everybody's support and Circa's support of the Aaron Torres pod. We are on the exclusive 15th floor because we were supposed to be at Stadium Swim. It is raining cats and dogs here in Vegas, but Circa has helped us out. We were in the sports book last night, and we cannot thank them enough for all of their support. If you are in Vegas at any point in the future, don't care if it's for March Madness, don't care if it's for the NFL draft, don't care if it's for Major League Baseball opening day, this is the place that you want to be. Circa Sportsbook. By the way, I've told you all week, they have a huge setup for the Masters. Every single hole at Augusta National, they're going to have a different camera on at Stadium Swim. So make sure to check out Circa and the Stadium Swim when you are in Las Vegas. Literally no place better to watch your sports. Thank you to Circa. Also, really quickly, a couple quick announcements. BracketFanatics.com for the fourth straight year is our Aaron Torres Pod Bracket Challenge sponsor. And here's the good news. You don't have to wait till the bracket comes out Sunday. You can sign up for the Aaron Torres Pod Bracket Challenge right now. And here is the cool part. We have a $1,000 prize pool in our Aaron Torres Pod Bracket Fanatics Challenge. So you're probably sitting there wondering, it's Friday, you're watching games, a couple games have started. Torres, how do I sign up for the Aaron Torres Pod Bracket Challenge? It's actually very easy. Go to BracketFanatics.com. You click on the Sponsored Brackets tab. Once you see that, you will see my logo, the Aaron Torres Pod, along with another podcast, but you want to sign up for mine because we have the biggest prize pool, and baby size matters, okay? So, BracketFanatics.com, Sponsored Brackets. Bracket, of course, will be the Aaron Torres Pod. $1,000 in cash prizes. And I'll give you some details if you want to start your own bracket as well. Finally, we're also presented by BetUS Sportsbook. BetUS has been with us all March Madness long. We love BetUS. We appreciate everything that they're doing, and they have an incredible offer. How about this from BetUS? Your first 3 deposits at BetUS, you get a 125% deposit bonus. Just click the link in the show description. That will take care of itself. Your first 3 deposits, 125% deposit match, courtesy of BetUS. So, it is the Friday of Champ Week. It is one of the best days on the college basketball calendar, and we have so much to preview. Some games are underway, so we're going to make this a quick kind of rapid-fire show here on a Friday morning, Friday early afternoon if you're on the East Coast. Couple things stand out. One, we're going to get to some of the semifinals later. By the way, the Big Ten, as I said, is underway right behind me. Right before we went live, I saw that Zach Edey was on the foul line for Purdue, and I said, to quote John Rothstein, this is March. When you see Zach Edey on the foul line like 30 seconds into the game, you know that we have officially hit March. But with that said, do want to talk about some of the games throughout the day. Purdue is underway against Michigan State, but want to preview some of the other big games throughout Friday. I do want to start with the SEC. Top of the hour, about 40 minutes from now, Tennessee will open their conference tournament against the Mississippi State Bulldogs as the SEC quarterfinals are underway. So Big 12, ACC, Big East, they are all, Pac-12 are in the semifinal state. Here's the thing, though. SEC is still in the quarters. I think we're going to have a great day. Won't dive too deep on Tennessee, Mississippi State because it's about 40 minutes from when I'm recording. But at the same time, there are a couple other games that are absolutely worth noting in the SEC throughout the day. I'm excited about this entire slate. I mean, first of all, just think about the 4-5 matchup. You have a South Carolina-Auburn game in which, keep in mind, these are two probably top 5 seeds in the NCAA tournament. Auburn, I thought this was interesting. This is the second game in the SEC, by the way, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central. Auburn's an 8-point favorite in this game. Now, part of it is these two teams only played once. It was kind of peak Auburn, late January, early February. Auburn won by 40 at Neville Arena. I don't think it's going to be anything like that. South Carolina's a good team. I think they probably have some clarity. Lamont Paris obviously just agreed to that long-term contract extension with the South Carolina Gamecocks. He's not going anywhere. I think we get the best effort of the year from South Carolina in this game. I actually think the under is certainly intriguing to me. So I think Auburn, South Carolina is going to be a great game. Early afternoon, SEC, Nashville. If you're there, have fun. I think it's going to be a really good one. The night games in the SEC are going to be bananas. Okay, let's stay in the SEC, then we'll go to the Big East, Big 12, etc. But Kentucky and Texas A&M, 5.5-point spread as Kentucky is the favorite. Kentucky opens SEC play. And listen, we've talked enough about Kentucky to have a full understanding that they are the most unique team in college basketball. Up and down, up and down, up and down. The last 10 days or so, last 10 days, really last about 3 weeks, they have been one of the best teams in college basketball. 5 straight wins, 7 of 8 games. That includes a win at Tennessee. That includes a win at Auburn. That includes a win against Alabama at home. I guess my only concern for Kentucky is straightforward. They haven't played in 6 days since that game against Tennessee at Thompson-Boling Arena. That's not a bad thing. It's good to get rest. But one, when you have momentum, you probably want to just keep playing. But 2, young guys, is there any type of, what's the right way to put it? Is there any type of arrogance or anything of that nature based on the fact that, they're coming off this incredible stretch? They've probably been walking around campus. Everybody loves you. They're in Nashville. It's all Kentucky fans. I think Kentucky wins. It wouldn't stun me if there was a slow start. Really quickly, from the Texas A&M perspective, we have talked about them time and time and time and time and time and time again. Bottom line, from the Texas A&M perspective, listen, they have to win this game, I think, to be an NCAA tournament consideration. Haven't seen if Lunardi and all the bracketologists have updated their brackets. As a matter of fact, I think they have. Texas A&M, as of this morning, as of Friday morning, was the last team into the field. So you'd think that really nothing they could – I don't think you can be hurt by losing to Kentucky, but I think if you win, it puts you in definitively. I don't know that they get the win, though. I think Kentucky rolls. Really quickly, the night game at the SEC tournament. Florida, by the way, let me down. Bet them last night. The best bets were a debacle last night, okay? So Florida does hold on and beat Georgia. And we're set up for a fascinating game in the nightcap at the SEC tournament. Florida is a 4-point underdog against Alabama. Remember, these two teams played twice. Florida lost in overtime at Coleman Coliseum. And then, oh, by the way, they also won by like 20 in Gainesville a few weeks ago. I still think Florida is one of the most underrated teams in college basketball, but it is worth noting they really had a little bit of a slow start or a little bit of a slow finish, to the end of the regular season. The Florida Gators, of course, after that Alabama win, they lost to Vanderbilt on the road, then did take care of business against Georgia in a game that was way closer than it should have been. But listen, I think Florida's good. Todd Golden, by the way, just got his own extension this week. And so I actually like Florida to win this game. So in the SEC, Tennessee, Mississippi State's going on basically right now. Give me Kentucky, give me Auburn, and give me Florida pulling off the upset in the SEC tournament. Really quick, we are here live at Circa Sportsbook, Circa Casino. We're on the mysterious, I don't even want to tell you where we are. We're supposed to be at Stadium Swim. It is pouring rain, raining cats and dogs here in Vegas. So we are inside today, but I cannot thank Circa enough for their support. By the way, speaking of support, Bracket Fanatics, bracketfanatics.com. I just told you about the Aaron Torres Pod Bracket Challenge. Well, here's the thing about the Aaron Torres Pod Bracket Challenge. It is great. It is awesome. Make sure to sign up. Bracketfanatics.com, sponsored brackets. But at the same time, here is what else you need to know. If you want to run your own bracket, the best place to do it is Bracket Fanatics as well. Go to bracketfanatics.com, start a bracket. That is what you want to do when you go to bracketfanatics.com. Start a bracket because start a bracket on bracketfanatics.com because when you start it, this is the place that you want to do it, okay? When you go to Bracket Fanatics and you start a bracket, the cool thing is this, is that one, you can have a free bracket like mine. If you have not signed up, make sure to do so. By the way, shout out to Paul in the comments section saying, Torres, your voice does not sound good. I know, Paul, trying to survive. I'm trying to get to Friday night like everybody else in college basketball, okay? But bring it up for the sole reason of when we go to bracketfanatics.com, start a bracket. You can have the free bracket like me, or you can start your own bracket. And here's the cool part. If it's a pay bracket, everybody pays online, okay? So basically, start a bracket, bracket's name, if your name's John Smith, the John Smith bracket, everybody pays on bracketfanatics.com. All of the payments go out. So if you're running that bracket, you don't want to chase around Doris from accounting. You don't want to chase around your buddy John, your cousin, your neighbor, your friend, your uncle. Hey, Uncle Fred, where's my $5? You entered my bracket and you're winning, but I can't give you your money until you give me mine. You don't got to worry about that. Bracketfanatics.com takes care of it for you. Start a bracket. You can play free bracket, but if it's a pay bracket, everybody pays on there. Bracket Fanatics collects the money for you, and then they send it out to whoever wins. So bracketfanatics.com, start a bracket, appreciate their support. And again, if you also want to join the Torres bracket, sponsored brackets at bracketfanatics.com, the Aaron Torres Pod. Let's get to some of the other games on Friday. Friday night is going to be bananas. And you know where it's going to be especially bananas? It is going to be bananas, Madison Square Garden, 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll tell you this. Grew up in Connecticut. I've been to a million Big East tournaments. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on the show. I was at the 6 overtime game when UConn lost to Syracuse. I was actually at the Jerry McNamara game in 06 when McNamara hit back-to-back buzzer beaters, including a second one to beat UConn in the quarterfinal round. I bring it up because I will tell you this. There is only 1 week a year where I truly miss being in New York and being part of the like I miss the East Coast. I'm not a huge New Yorker, but New York Big East tournament week is the best week of the year. And we have 2 very compelling games in the Big East tournament. That St. John's UConn game I think is going to be fascinating. So we talked about both these teams on Thursday night show. First of all, UConn a 9.5-point favorite. I still can't get over what UConn did on Thursday in the quarterfinal round against Xavier, okay? So in that game, remember, UConn was up 1 at the half. Then they shot 78% from the field. That doesn't even sound like a real number. That sounds made up. You know how when you're like, oh, man, they shot like 78%. They shot 1,000,000%. No, UConn literally shot 78% from the field and won, putting up 53 points in the second half. That was against Xavier. I will say, St. John's, I think, can give UConn fits. I don't know if they can win, but these 2 teams played twice. I obviously watched both games closely. You understand that in the first game, it was in Hartford right before Christmas. St. John's easily could have won. And in the second matchup, I would argue it was pretty close till about 8 minutes to go. UConn just hit a second gear. By the way, that was when St. John's was not playing well. So St. John's is not afraid of UConn. The crowd will be certainly interesting. I would guess it'd be 60-40 UConn, even though it's St. John's home court. Credit to St. John's. By the way, on Thursday, they get the win against Seton Hall. That was another best bet that I just ripped up the ticket and started over because you look at that best bet, it was not good. St. John's put up 91 points in the win. I think the big thing from St. John's, they're getting contributions from everyone. Their leading scorer on Thursday was R.J. Luis off the bench, 18 points. Do think St. John's can keep it close. Don't know that St. John's can win. Give me UConn like 86, St. John's 74. So maybe it's not that close because the spread is 9.5. I think UConn wins by about double digits. Second game, a really interesting one. Listen, we've talked bubble. Providence, man. I don't know what else there is to say. I am so impressed by this team. They win against Creighton on Thursday night. They obviously, the game before, take care of business against Georgetown. I think they're probably in the NCAA tournament. And I know depending on if you look at a Joe Lunardi, a Jerry Palm, or whatever, some will say they're already in. Some will say first four out, whatever. So essentially the question becomes, does Providence need to win on Friday night again after they beat Creighton? I don't know if they do. Interesting matchup with Marquette. Marquette barely survives without Tyler Kolek on Thursday night. Unbelievable game. The buzzer beater that was called off, they win in overtime. Obviously, that game, I think the story is Villanova probably being eliminated from the tournament and from the bracket. But I don't know what to make of this game. You know, I will tell you straight up, I will not be betting it. No interest, no feel for this game. My hunch is Marquette probably wins, but my hunch was that Creighton was probably going to win on Thursday night. So give me Marquette. Don't feel good about it. Let's go quickly to the Big 12. How about this? The Big 12, the top 4 seeds have made it to the semi. So Torres thought, oh, maybe BYU makes a run. Maybe Texas makes a run. No. Houston, Texas Tech, early game, and then the late game, Baylor, Iowa State. Listen, I said this about Houston. Houston is just the reliable friend. Like, I related them to the child on Thursday's show. You know how, like, you have that one child that always causes trouble and you're always worried about them and da-da-da. And then you have the other child that it's like, if you tell them curfew's at 11, they're in the door at 10:55 a.m. I bring it up to very simply say that is the Houston Cougars. They are a 9-point favorite against Texas Tech. One thing I will say, Texas Tech's a tough team. Texas Tech has size. Texas Tech is physical. They're tough. I think it'll be an interesting game. But I just can't pick against Houston in this tournament. They are talented. They are deep. They are tough. Now, listen, they've obviously dealt with some injuries along the way, so it's tough for me to say that they're, like, unbeatable. But I do think Houston probably takes care of business in the early game against Texas Tech. Interesting note, these two teams played a couple times this year. The first game, Houston wins. They only played once. It was at Houston. Houston won a lot to a little. I watched that game. Texas Tech is good, like I said. I don't know that Texas Tech can beat Houston. The late game, Baylor, Iowa State. This is interesting in the Big 12 because, remember, the Big 12 used to be a double round robin. Now it is a situation where basically a lot of these teams are only playing once. And so you look at the Big 12, Baylor and Iowa State only played once. What was interesting about that game, do you remember? Baylor hits a shot, Iowa State hits a buzzer beater, it's called off. I bring it up to say these are two very balanced teams. I got to give Iowa State credit, man. You know, they played on Thursday night against Kansas State, okay? And I bring it up because Kansas State kind of was on the bubble. They needed that win. I bring it up because they destroyed Kansas State. It was not competitive. I like Iowa State to win. That is not a game I will be betting. I do think in the Big 12 we get that number 1 versus number 2 matchup on Saturday, Houston versus Iowa State. That would be the third time these two met. Iowa State beat Houston at home. Houston beat Iowa State when they were at home. Would love to see that matchup for a third and final time in the Big 12 championship. Really quickly, the ACC. Listen, I'm not spending a ton of time on this for a couple reasons. One, first of all, North Carolina, they will be playing in the early game. Pitt, they are a 7.5-point favorite in the BetUS Sportsbook. Don't know what else there is to say. Love Carolina. Pitt probably, I've said it all week, I think they probably need this win to get into the NCAA tournament. And if they don't get into the NCAA tournament without this win, I don't think they can get in without this win, okay? So Pitt, obviously, on Thursday took care of business against Wake Forest. They are still in Joe Lunardi's first 4 out, though. I think a win here puts them in. I don't think they get it. I think Carolina's been the best team in the ACC all year. We talked about it on the show on Thursday night. Give me Carolina to win. And then the late game, NC State versus Virginia. I mean, you want to talk about this game, go ahead. Virginia's a 2.5-point favorite. Probably just, if I had to bet it, I don't know, can you bet the under at 121.5? Two pretty good defensive teams. I like Virginia to probably win. Probably a North Carolina-Virginia title game. I think North Carolina wins on Saturday night. And again, by the way, I will be reacting to all of these games Friday night, Stadium Swim, Circa Casino, so make sure to check it out. Really quickly, we've talked ACC, we've talked SEC, we've talked Big 12, we've talked Big East. Really quickly, the Pac-12. I was at the Pac-12 semis, had a blast. Arizona against Oregon. Listen, Arizona's an 11-point favorite. The big thing with Arizona, can they be consistent? We talked about it on Thursday night show. They are a great team, a great pro. I think when they're locked in, they are in that UConn, Houston class. They just aren't locked in all the time. And so they're an 11-point favorite. They just beat Oregon in Eugene a few weeks ago. And I think this is probably closer than the 11 points. Arizona, top to bottom, is one of the 2 or 3 most talented teams in the country. The problem with them all year, consistency. Win a big game, then they lose at Stanford. Win a big game, then they lose to Oregon State at the buzzer. Win a big game, they get swept by Washington State. I do like Arizona to win the opener at T-Mobile. The night game, this is an interesting one. So Colorado took care of Utah late. Colorado is in Joe Lunardi's last 4 in, I should say. And they appear to be in the bracket. You know what would help them? Beating Washington State, which I don't think they are going to do on Friday night in Vegas. I think we get a Washington State versus Arizona title game. It is worth noting, though, with Colorado, they have won 7 straight games, including a 14-point win over Utah in the quarterfinals on Thursday night. So give me a Washington State-Arizona Part 3 in the Pac-12 championship game. Finally, very quickly in the Big Ten, as I record here, we have a game going on in Minneapolis. Purdue up 18-13 as I record. The 3 quarterfinals, I should say, after that. After the Purdue game, we are talking about Wisconsin against Northwestern. I think Northwestern wins. Illinois against Ohio State. Listen, I don't love Illinois. They basically stopped playing defense around Valentine's Day. Give me Ohio State +5. They seem to be playing well for the new interim coach, Jake Diebler. And then finally, the nightcap at 9 Eastern, 8 Central. Mike F. Woodson and the Indiana Hoosiers playing Nebraska. I do like Nebraska to win that game. My pre-Big Ten tournament pick was Purdue over Nebraska in the final. Tell you what, we just did 25 minutes on a slate that is already underway. For those of you who are tuning in on a Friday morning, I appreciate your support. Really quickly, again, I know Paul checked in, making sure that my throat is okay. I'm hanging on for dear life, Paul. But I'll tell you what, games are underway. Wanted to get you my quick picks, and here's the thing. We will be back tonight. Don't know where yet because it's raining in Vegas, but make sure you're locked in on the YouTube channel. We will be back live at probably about 11:30 Eastern time when the games start to wind down. But cannot thank you guys all enough for your support this week. The shows have been incredible. The response has been incredible. We appreciate your support. And oh, by the way, we appreciate Circa Sportsbook for hosting us. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure to do so. Click that little subscribe button. Turn on the notifications. We're going live. We're talking college hoops. We'll get back to football once we get through the NCAA tournament. And oh, by the way, you know what else happens next week? Transfer portal opens. Make sure you're subscribed there. Make sure you subscribe to the pod, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, etc. Make sure you're following on social media, at Aaron_Torres on Twitter, at Aaron Torres Pod on Instagram, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. That is all for our early morning show, early morning here in Vegas. It's about 9:40 Pacific time, 12:40 Eastern. Enjoy the games. I will be back in about 12 hours from now, right before midnight Eastern, recapping everything. Shout out to Torrin Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick. You F-ed. Unblock me, bro. I will be back 11 Eastern, 11:30. Stay tuned. This is why you got to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Pod. We will be